Hello, this is Scarlet and Rage podcast. I am Michael, and Jay is here with me. Hope you're having a great Monday morning, and hope this is going to be a great week for you. And it's certainly a great way to kick it off with Scarlet and Rage podcast. So, if you have been watching and you enjoy this, this kind of format and this content that we're doing, please hit the thumbs up and please hit the subscribe button. And last thing, also hit the bell so that you'll be alerted every time one of our videos goes live. Appreciate that. And let's get into the episode today. Jay, I'm not a big basketball guy, but it's my understanding that Ohio State has had some disappointing basketball performances in this early season. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, before I start my Ohio State basketball talk, Michael and I do this podcast not just from an Ohio State football perspective. Like there are other sports associated with Ohio State that make money, like the basketball program. I believe maybe the wrestling program and maybe the baseball program too. So we're going to be touching on those. I'm more of the basketball guy. Michael's more of the baseball guy. So when baseball season comes around, Michael, I'm going to be deferring to him. He's going to be deferring to me more on basketball. I wasn't going to talk about Ohio State basketball last week. They hadn't played any regular season games yet.
Jay, your voice is sounding a little bit rough. Have you been sick lately?
You know what? I was actually going to talk about that. Actually, no, I haven't. This actually came on in the last couple hours. My wife came home and she's like, "What's wrong with your voice?" And I'm like, I don't know. It's just kept getting worse. It's literally happened within like the last 3 hours. Weird, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, whatever it is, hopefully nothing escalates. So everyone, I'm sorry if I sound hoarse. I can't control it. My son is in daycare, so he catches a lot of weird shit. So it is what it is. So bear with me here. So with Ohio State basketball, they played 2 games this past week. They played their first home opener against Oakland, University of Oakland. I don't know. I don't really know anything about them. I know they're out of the state of Michigan. That's really all I know. Ohio State struggled to beat them. I was like, that's not very good there. So I kind of let it slide. I'm like, it really all comes down to Friday against Texas A&M, and Texas A&M was ranked 15th in the preseason top 25 poll for I think in the coaches poll. They only made it to the first round last season and got blown out by Penn State. So
Ohio State's unranked, correct?
Ohio State is unranked. That is correct, Michael. And to be honest, based on the talent Ohio State was bringing back, I know we finished under 500, but based on the last 2 recruiting classes and the transfer we got in Jamison Battle that we brought in, I'm like, okay, we might have something with this team. Anywho, the Ohio State basketball program, I've just watched those 2 games. It is an absolute dumpster fire garbage program. It has become.
Okay, so first off, what was the outcome of the Texas A&M game?
They lost. I believe the score was they lost by like 6 or 7 points at home. I don't remember the exact score. I'm so mad. I honestly, the final score left out of my mind, and I started just kind of just vigorously, so heated, just posting on like random sports blogs and stuff about what I'm about to tell everyone. And what I'm about to tell everyone is Chris Holtmann sucks. He has become Thad Matta 2.0 with less talent. And yes, I absolutely do say Thad Matta 2.0 because Thad Matta, as great of a recruiter as he was, as great of a person he was, yes, he is a great person. I met him in person, got his autograph, nicest man in the world. He could not coach basketball. He could not coach the fundamentals. They didn't run an offense. They all of the little things you're taught at a young age, he did not do. This shirt I'm wearing, the Ohio State basketball camp that I went to when Jim O'Brien was still Ohio State's basketball coach. I decided to wear this tonight to just honor like what an actual basketball coach looks like. And I don't want to get off on a tangent on Thad Matta. He had a lot of success, but you can have a lot of success and not be a good coach. He was a great recruiter. And his players played hard. But don't mistake him for a good coach. He was actually quite a horrific coach
Well, he
based
never
on the
got it.
X's and
He
O's.
never got it done. I mean,
No,
I would.
he should have won it. He probably should have won 3 national
Yeah.
championships, and
I
he
would
only
love
made
to.
2 Final Fours.
I would love to go back to Thad Matta days. I might be interested in Ohio State basketball again, but he didn't get it done. So I mean that is a fair point.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the state of Ohio State basketball. So, yeah, Thad Matta never got it done. He underachieved with the talent he had. He had a lot of NBA players, a lot of, top 3 or 4 recruiting classes, numerous 5 stars, and yeah, they would choke in, like, Kentucky, Kansas games. They lost to Dayton in the first round. It's just, again, this isn't a topic about Thad Matta. This is the program.
Okay,
We're talking about the
Jay,
program as is.
do you think it's fair to have the expectation that most of the time Ohio State is going to have a top 5 football coach and at least a top 6 or 8 basketball coach? I mean, is that too much to ask? Can Ohio State? I really feel like if they put their mind to it, they could live up to that standard.
Oh man, dude, that is actually a really good question. I don't know about like ranking coaches, but I can tell you this. Ohio State, historically in basketball, is a top 15 program of all time
Mhm.
on their success based on just solely the entire history. Maybe slightly lower. Maybe I might say top 18, but that's still very solid. But I would
Mhm.
absolutely say top 15. They are in like the top 8 of all time of Final Four appearances. I don't know if anybody knows that. They have
How many
11
have they
Final.
won?
They've only won 1 national championship under the greatest head coach in Ohio State history, Fred Taylor.
Mm.
So, anywho, um, with Chris Holtman, with the more talent he's gotten at Ohio State, because the 2022 and 2023 classes, Michael, were both top 10 classes. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, he's starting to get talent. Like, we're about to go somewhere. Everyone would think that. He's like I said before, he's become Thad 2.0 the more talent he gets.
Mm.
They do not run an offense. I don't know what they do out there. They do some kind of motion where they don't pick for one another. Uh, they don't really run any kind of high low. I don't know what they do. It's basically pass the ball around and somebody either jacks up a bad shot or they drive and try and create something. That's literally all they do. They play terrible defense. They play terrible on the ball defense. They're not in a defensive stance. They're not low. They don't shuffle with their feet. They play defense with their hands. You're
Yeah.
never taught to play defense with your hands. You put your hand on somebody, it's a foul. It should be a call to foul every single time. You can't do that. And
Yeah.
they really do nothing well. They don't box out. They don't do anything well, Michael. It's disgusting to watch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a reason you lose, and I haven't watched them a lot in recent years, but I'm not surprised to hear that they don't do a lot of things well, because if you did do most of those things well, you wouldn't lose as much as they do. And so I'm a fair weather basketball fan. If
Mhm.
basketball, whether it's Ohio State or whether it's maybe an NBA team that I might take an interest in, if they're going well, I will watch. If they're just not doing good, I just check out of basketball. And frankly, I have checked out of Ohio State basketball for several years now.
The team they played on Friday, Texas A&M, I'm
And
seeing people.
that's not a good thing, because I'm the casual fan. Like, when you lose the casual fan, there's
Yeah,
not a lot of
no,
excitement, about
they've
your team.
lost me. Let me point it
Yeah.
out. They've lost me too. I don't expect to really tune into them this season. I really don't, and I'll explain why. People are actually trying to say Texas A&M is a good team. No, the fuck they aren't. I watched them play. They're not a very big team. Ohio State got killed on the boards. They aren't that good. They don't shoot that well, nor were they that big. They just crashed the glass hard because Ohio State didn't block out. Their 2 players that killed us on the glass were only 6'8" and 6'7". This wasn't Connecticut. Ohio State was fucking playing with Connecticut with the 7-footers they have. And to be honest, the biggest problem is Gene Smith. We talked about this before. He
I
is
was
the
going to go
problem.
there. I was going to ask that. Is not Gene the biggest problem with the basketball program right
Gene
now?
Smith is the biggest program
Mhm.
with Ohio State athletics in general. He extended Holtman a year ago, and then Holtman follows it up by being extended by finishing under 500. He's just a terrible athletic director. The door cannot hit him hard enough in the ass on his way out. And to continue on, Big Ten basketball may be even worse than football. So where are the good wins going to come from? I was watching the Big Ten basketball the last couple days. At least football has a recent title in the Big Ten. Big Ten basketball hasn't won a title since 2000. I mean, Indiana was struggling with Army today at home. Maryland lost a couple hours away from me in Asheville to Davidson. Wisconsin lost at home to Tennessee. And Michigan State lost to fucking James Madison at home. This conference fucking sucks. It is terrible. If A&M can afford a $76 million buyout for Jimbo Fisher to be fired and then pay it, Ohio State can afford the $15 to $20 million buyout to get Chris fucking Holtman out. I'm sick and fucking tired of Chris Holtman. He's terrible. I can't fucking stand it, Mike. I am fucking mad. This is terrible.
Well, it's at this point, I don't think it's going to get better more than likely with Chris Holtman. And so then it's just, I guess, a matter of is the new athletic director going to come in and make a change quickly and try and get the basketball program back on track?
I don't see it happening because the new athletic director is going to come in like the summer of 2024, and it's going to be months removed from the end of the basketball season, where I don't believe Ohio State's going to make the NCAA tournament. The product I saw the other night is not a product that I believe is going to make the NCAA tournament. Not only, like I said before, the quality wins aren't going to be there. A lot of losses are going to pile up. And as bad as the Big Ten is, Ohio State will still lose games in the Big Ten. They will.
Well, Jay, I am a casual basketball fan, and we will get into that certainly more as the season goes.
No, this is the last time I'm speaking about basketball.
Oh, you're not talking about basketball anymore.
I don't want to, man. They suck. I mean, I basically got all my unfiltered thoughts about them out right now.
Okay.
I don't anticipate at least talking about them.
If there's anything to talk about as the season
half.
goes, you will update us and give us your thoughts as to whether you still feel very angry about the team or whether you feel a little more hopeful about the team. So
it's sad that I'm going to feel like more like I just don't care. Like,
well,
like laissez-faire.
You can get there too. But a team that we still do care about, a team that still has a chance to do most of, if not all of its goals this season, the 2023 edition of the Ohio State Buckeyes. They took on Michigan State the other night. I was looking for improvement. I didn't have a high bar going in. I'll be honest with you. So I think the fact that maybe you had a higher bar going in is why you are more aggravated about the wasn't a loss, about the way that they played than I was. I was relatively okay with the way they played. It certainly wasn't perfect, and certainly it's concerning that they can't seem to, really finish those drives that really they should be finishing. They're so much more talented than teams like Michigan State. But it was kind of a mixed bag. So what are your thoughts on the game?
Well, let's start out with the positives, man, because you know me, I'm Mr. Positivity over here. You know what? I think I should change my name on here to Mr. Positivity. I don't want to be Rage anymore. Rage is it makes me I feel like I'm losing the years of my life. I should be more positive in life and appreciate all the good things there are.
We got to change Rage. No more rage. Peace and tranquility and positivity.
Man. Yeah, I got bit with the rage virus. Anybody saw 28 days, 28 weeks later? That's what I have going on right now. Anywho, football team. Let's start with the positive. Marvin Harrison Jr. He's an amazing player. What else can we say? He's the best receiver in the country. I used to think that he might not be. I thought Florida State's Keon Coleman was better. He's not putting up the same stats that Marvin is. Cade Stover has become an absolute weapon in the passing game.
Yeah.
Amazing weapon. Pass protection is really good. Michigan State didn't get any pressure on Kyle, I don't think. Did they?
Not much.
Yeah. And we scored 35 points and a half. It's pretty good. Michigan State is god fucking awful, though.
They're terrible.
I make it clear. They are they are Western Kentucky type bad. Maybe not quite that bad, but they are fucking bad. I would like
They're
to see
bad.
them in Youngstown State on a field and see who would win because it'd be an interesting game.
That program is gutted. I mean, it is just an awful condition.
Oh yeah,
So yeah, I mean, all those were positives. Marv did have a drop again. Um,
that's right. He did have a drop. I do
he
remember
played
that.
great, but he did have the drop. I know that he would like to not have those drops. Um, and I get it. Everybody's gonna make drops over the course of a season, but um, defense was, the overall result was good. 3 points. I don't care if you are playing a bottom feeder Power 5 team. Giving up 3 points is hard to be upset about, but it didn't always look the prettiest. It didn't always inspire you with confidence. Some of the yardage they gave up against a really bad team, but it was overall, they did their job. They kept them off the board, and that's kind of what they've done this year, Jay. They bend but don't break. They limit the points, and they live to fight another day. So I mean, they've not been that big, aggressive, hard hitting, stop you in your tracks kind of defense.
Yeah, no, you're right. I you know, I always say to myself, I like the defense that doesn't bend or break and
Mhm.
breaks the other team. That's kind of how
Yeah.
I like my defense the most. Like, give up nothing, draw a line in the sand, starting from the 25. You're not crossing the 25-yard line, man. I'm gonna fricking hit you in the backfield. I'm not gonna let you have any running lanes, and I'm gonna pressure the shit out of your quarterback. But that's me.
Well, Jay,
It
have
is
you
what it
noticed
is.
that philosophically, uh, Jim Knowles has gone from this, kind of quote unquote riverboat gambler, aggressive defensive coordinator was his MO. That's what he was known as. That's
Hmm.
what he was billed as when he was coming to Ohio State. And this year, he looks a lot like Jim Heacock in the philosophical approach to defense. They want to keep the ball in front. They want to make the defense earn everything. They want to make the defense earn every point. They don't want to give up anything easy. And then they like their odds that the defense is not going to consistently be able to drive all the way down the field against them. And so far, that philosophy has worked very well. What do you think about that approach? Do you think that that's going to continue to work? Because from what I have seen, we have not only not played a good defense, we have barely played a mediocre defense. I mean,
You mean
a
offense? You mean?
mediocre offense. Yes,
Hmm.
we have barely played a mediocre offense, and so I like this D. I really do. There's this part of me that goes back to last year when the D looked like it was one thing, and then here comes Michigan and Georgia, and the D was something else. And so I'm not saying that's the case with this defense, but I'm cautious with it because we haven't played any good offenses.
You're absolutely right. We haven't played any good offenses, man. Um, the biggest problem with being in the Big Ten is exactly what you just said. People rip on like the Pac-10. Oh, they don't play defense or whatever. Well, the Big Ten doesn't play any offense, and it really
No,
does make it hard
not
for
this year.
Ohio
It's at
State.
this. I think this year it's at even a low point for the Big Ten.
Yeah, it makes it hard for Ohio State to grow as a team when they
Yeah.
don't get looks, like quality looks. Like even Notre Dame. Notre Dame's a solid team, but their offense is terrible. They're a solid team because their defense is good and they have a solid running game. Not great, but solid.
Mhm.
Their passing game is atrocious. They can't spread you out. Nobody on our schedule has been able to do that outside of kind of Western Kentucky. And I thought Western Kentucky was actually a decent team when we played them. They've lost a lot of games. Turns out they're actually really fucking bad. So, Maryland is bad. They only scored 13 points yesterday in a win against, man, who did Maryland beat? They've won. Oh, Nebraska. They beat fucking Nebraska
Ugh.
barely. And it's like, yeah, Ohio State hasn't played any offenses. And, you see the offenses in the SEC. You have LSU, you have Ole Miss, you have Georgia, you have Alabama. They're all spreading you out, going
Yep.
fast. They play with physicality and power and longer, bigger, faster athletes. It's like, no wonder they're the most prepared for the bowl games.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's certainly something. There's certainly something to that. As much as I'm not a fan of the SEC, and I am not. I hate the SEC, to be quite honest with you.
Oh yeah, I
Uh,
hate them.
I hate the SEC worse than I hate Michigan, and a lot of Ohio State fans will not understand that, or they will not. They just won't agree with that, and that's fine. That's just my personal view. It's not that doesn't mean that I like Michigan. It just means I hate the SEC more than Michigan.
Yeah, man, I
Um,
will absolutely say I cheer for Michigan in bowl games and out of conference. Absolutely. Because
yeah.
what do I love the most? I love Ohio State the most. Well, if Michigan does well out of conference, it helps Ohio State.
If Michigan is not beating teams in the Pac-12 and in the Big 12 and in the SEC, and then that's worse for Ohio State. You want
Mhm.
Michigan winning those games so that when
Yeah.
you beat Michigan, it makes you look even better. And then, God forbid, if you lose to Michigan, at least they have beat some other really quality national teams as well.
Mhm.
Whereas the last 2 years, Ohio State gets their brains beat in by them, and then Michigan goes and loses to a national team on a national stage, and it's just embarrassing.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I mean, like 2 years ago, we get bludgeoned by Michigan. Michigan gets bludgeoned even worse by Georgia. That
Yeah,
looks makes Ohio State look terrible.
look
It
like
makes the
crap.
conference look terrible.
They get drubbed by Michigan at home. Michigan loses to TCU. I get it. I get all the sign stealing stuff and all of this stuff that everyone's very fascinated with talking about. But again, the one thing that I keep going back to, some Ohio fans don't, so state fans don't like it, but it's still what I'm going to go back to is if it made that big of a deal, go prove it this month. If the cheating was why we lost by 23 points last year and we lost by a couple of touchdowns the year before that, go to Ann Arbor and prove it. Because if you don't go to Ann Arbor and win, then all of these cheating allegations and the way that Ohio State fans are trying to make themselves feel better about the last 2 years' losses mean nothing.
I I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more, Michael. You said it. I can't add on to that. But I will go back to the defense a little bit. You mentioned the defense and bending, not breaking. There are a couple problems still with the defense. Number one, our run defense continues to be a problem. I saw it last night. We were able, Michigan State was actually able to run the ball with some slight success, but they got down by so much they had to
Mhm.
go away from it. I expect Michigan in 2 weeks to run heavy sets the entire game and pound the interior. It's not good that Michigan State found success there. I don't know what's wrong with Ohio State's run defense. It's not it's not great. It's solid, but it's not great. And you need a great run defense to beat a team like Michigan because that's what they're going to do. And then another thing, I didn't really like the soft coverage at the beginning of the game. Did you notice the soft coverage at all?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah, I
did.
didn't like that. You know, and Jermaine Matthews, your boy from Winton Woods,
Mhm.
he needs to start.
He's
He needs
good.
to start. He needs to start over Igmanosin.
Yeah, he's
Igmanosin, yeah, Igmanosin is a solid, like he's okay and maybe even really a solid corner, but nothing more than that I've
mhm.
seen. Jermaine Matthews is straight lockdown with him and Denzel Burke. In 2 weeks, I'm putting them on islands against Michigan's receivers
Mhm.
because they actually can cover. And then, Jordan Hancock in the slot and be like, beat us, Michigan. Because we actually have, if you have those three on the field, you do have dudes that can cover. You're not putting fish out there that can't cover.
Yeah.
Those three can cover. Absolutely.
Yeah, Matthews continues to impress.
He's a monster, man. He's the next All American at Ohio State. I'm not
Ryan
kidding.
Day was very high on him in a press conference here recently.
What did he
He,
say?
well, he said that when you recruit a kid like that, you see the talent and you feel like you see something, but you don't really know until they get on campus. And he said, as he's gotten on campus, he has shown day after day that he is exactly what they thought he was. He is aggressive, he is tough, and he is coming 100% every day to compete and to prove himself. And so he was very complimentary of him.
Here's the thing, and this is where Ohio football is behind. Um, Jermaine Matthews didn't become a household name on the recruiting scene until he went down to LSU and camped. He, paid his own way to go
Yeah,
down to Louisiana State University, lit the world on fire down there. They're like, who is this guy? And that's
yeah,
where he started to get the high ratings. Ohio football They just don't have those kind. I guess I don't know. I guess at the Ohio State camp there aren't as many quality athletes there, so all the Southern teams started getting noticing him. We don't have 7-on-7 in the summertime, um, and from like an AAU standpoint in Ohio. So
Yeah.
these kids are behind. I was listening to another recruiting podcast. They were saying like somebody like Tavian St. Clair, he would be considered like even though he's a junior this year, but like let's say you compare him to a junior in Florida or Georgia or Texas,
Mhm.
you could make the argument that all of those kids, albeit they're the same age as him, they're he's a year behind them in development
Mhm.
because of all of that stuff I just mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, it's an easy fix. It's not that hard. Ohio, as you probably know, Jay, has a tendency in many areas to be very traditional and
Yeah.
very difficult and slow to change.
Hmm.
And that's the case here. And there's no reason to keep holding your athletes back because I still believe that you're going to see a lot of good players come out of the Columbus area, the Cincinnati area, the Cleveland area, and even some other areas scattered out in the around the state, over the next 6, 8, 9 years. I really do believe that there are going to be. I'm not saying that there's going to be tons of Ohio State level guys. There's not. If you get 5 or 6, that's great. But I think there's a lot of good players out there. They're going to play in the Power Five arena somewhere. And, there's no reason for these guys to be getting an Ohio downgrade. I mean, because I really believe that that's the case with a lot of guys in Ohio. They start off lower rated, they don't get any benefit of the doubt. Whereas your kids in Georgia, your kids in South Florida, your kids in Texas, they get almost an extra benefit of the doubt. They would be maybe rated a 91 if they were a kid in Ohio, but down in Georgia or South Florida, they already have them at a 96 or 97. They just get that extra.
Hmm.
They get that extra bump from being in those favored states. And it's time for Ohio to do what they can to push back on that.
Yeah, I know you say the state of Ohio is more traditional in their beliefs and stuff. They didn't seem too traditional a couple days ago when it came to the voting of issue one, were they?
That's a sad story. I mean, that's a
You
sad
know what?
story.
I really don't even want to get into that. I
Yeah,
just thought it was it's actually a really disgusting thing.
yeah.
And I really don't want to get into that because I'm already filled with enough rage and I'm pissed off enough. Um, but one thing I want to talk about, Michael, and I don't know if you noticed this, but in my honest opinion, I thought the second half was honestly a disgusting display of a football for Ohio State,
Well, the
only
second
scoring
half
3
wasn't good.
points.
I'll give you that. It was the
That was
second half was not
bad.
pretty.
And this is where I want to check your temperature with the mentality of the team because I have the opinion of I really do wonder with Ryan Day as coach, and I know we've preached toughness and all of that, but the second half didn't really show me a lot of toughness and wanting to really bury Michigan State. They just wanted to play Mr. Nice Guy. Well, why? What has Michigan State ever done for Ohio State? Um, I don't mind Ryan Day playing backups early, but why such awful play calling and putting these players in bad spots? The second half was an awful display of football. And one of the reasons why Kyle McCord was so behind in development. That's one of the reasons why it has taken him so long to get the feel because when he's entered the games in the past, they aren't running the same offense that CJ Stroud and
Yeah,
Justin Fields were running. CJ
yeah.
Stroud suffered from the same thing in the Justin Field years. Ryan Day has a terrible mentality of calling a completely different game plan with the backups in.
I
Completely.
will I will 100% agree with that. It's maddening. It becomes so vanilla and so boring. And why? What are you trying to do? Why don't Lincoln Kindholtz looked pretty good in his first few snaps. He
Yeah.
made some nice throws. Why not let the kid rip a little bit and see if he can do something that could boost his confidence? You're in a win-win situation. If he hits a few throws and gets a boost of confidence, that's a win. If he misses the throws or something bad happens and he gets intercepted, you can tell him, hey, you're young, you're out there learning, no big deal, let's move on. So I mean, there's really nothing to lose from allowing these guys to actually go out there and play.
I agree. I mean, again, they're backups for a reason. And again, it's football. If they get hurt, they get hurt. I'm not going to, it sucks for them if they get hurt, but they know what the fuck they're signing up for. They're on full scholarship, and they're probably getting paid with NIL. Hello here, and they want to play and, showcase their talents. Ryan Day's doing them a disservice. He's not only doing them a disservice, he's doing the program a disservice.
I agree.
Yeah, it's just the attention to detail and finer nuances and stuff, they really come back to bite Ryan because it
Mhm.
doesn't develop any depth. It really hurts the team for the next year when these guys are now starters. So, it really, kills the team. And it's one of the reasons why, I really believe that, Ryan Day doesn't win against talented teams. He's 2-5 in top 5 games. Look at Kirby Smart. This is all a mentality thing. When they were absolutely going in dry in TCU in the national championship game a year ago, did you see, on offense and defense? Yeah, he had backups in, but they were still blitzing like fucking crazy after TCU. They were still
Mhm.
throwing the ball around with Carson Beck, their backup
Mhm.
quarterback at the time, still opening it up with their backups. That is why Kirby Smart wins and why Ryan Day loses. That is a
Mhm.
big reason. That's just a mentality.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that I honestly, the more Jay that I watch Ryan Day, the more I see that he is far more like Jim Tressel than he is like Urban Meyer. And you can take some good and some bad with that. I think that Tressel had some great qualities that Urban could have used. I think he had that steadiness, that solid, day in, day out. Not a lot of ups, not a lot of downs. So I think Day has certainly a little more of that, like Tress had. But he also has that deep conservatism, and almost the way I always interpret it with Tressel was like he was not wanting to embarrass one of his Big Ten brothers. He wanted to pull it back a little bit. And maybe that was not his thought process at all, but that's always how it kind of came across. And it always seems like that with Ryan Day a lot of the times, that he just really calls off the dogs, and the young guys getting in there are almost like a waste of time on offense, because all he's going to do is just run the ball every single play when we're trying to see what is, what's down the road at quarterback. And I just don't understand why he can't put a little more into giving these guys some game experience.
I don't know, and it's not something we're ever gonna know the answer to, unfortunately. I don't care what Ryan Day says to the media. What he says to the media and what he says behind closed doors are 2 different things. I mean, it's obvious. You know, Jim Tressel is a master of, mixing his words and, leading you over here where, having you look over here when it's right here that you need to be looking kinda thing, so it is what it is, man. It's just who he is as a person. He's not his mentality isn't like a super, aggressive coach. It's not
Can
like
I say something
destroy
about that? Can
somebody.
I say something about that, Jay, that I witnessed
Mhm,
last week in a press conference?
mhm.
And this, again, this is not necessarily a knock on Ryan Day. These are just the things that I have seen that make me go, does he have it in him? Can he get this done? Because he doesn't have that classic football coach mentality. When you think of like the champions, like the Nick Sabans, like the Urban Meyers, like the now the Kirby Smarts. And so uh, it was a press conference, and they were asking him, questions about the Michigan ordeal. And he told them he didn't want to talk about it. He said, guys, I don't want to talk about that. He was very nice about it, but he made it clear they didn't want to talk about it. They didn't respect that. They came back the very next question with another question about the Michigan thing. And you know what he did?
What?
He answered their question. To me, a tough, no nonsense football coach is going to look at the media member and say, I just said we're not answering any more questions about that. And that's what I mean. So don't ask another question about it. Let's move on. But he didn't do that. He gave in to the media. He answered the question, and the whole nonsense about Michigan went on another 2 or 3 minutes.
So what are you, What are you thinking there? What are your thoughts on that?
What I'm thinking is that shows me that his base personality is more of a people pleaser than it
Mm.
is somebody who is going to just do what he thinks come hell or high water.
Yeah, does Ryan Day strike you as like an alpha fucking male? Like
No,
he is a
not at
leader?
all. He
Okay.
doesn't. I'm
Little
just
bit
being
of a
honest.
beta in there.
And
Yeah, he does
those
strike
fans
me
that
like
love
that.
Ryan Day, I'm sorry. He doesn't come across as an alpha. That doesn't mean he can't be a great coach. It doesn't even necessarily mean he can't, doesn't mean he can't win a national championship, but it means it just means that he's going to have to find his formula. And so far he hasn't found it. Maybe this year's the year.
I don't know, man. His actions don't say that. I don't know. I mean, I will say this. I do like that he, kind of went off in the post Notre Dame conference. A
Mhm.
lot of people weren't, but I actually kind of like that. Um, because if Lou Holtz is going to talk shit, then people are going to talk shit back. So, um, I guess that's kind of a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Um,
So
Anywho, yeah.
looking down the road, speaking of Ryan Day and just his teams displaying that toughness, if you want to get the tough card off the table for good, not for good necessarily, but if you want to get the tough monkey off your back for a while, go and beat Michigan in Ann Arbor and be the more physical team, and you'll get the tough monkey off your back for a while. So it's completely in their corner. And we got a good peek at what that Michigan team has this year. And we saw it in Happy Valley in a tough environment against a good football team, not a great football team by any means. So let's not be crazy. It's a good football team.
Mhm.
But what did you think? What did you see in that game, Jay? I watched the whole game.
Michael, I actually texted you about this,
Mm-hmm.
and I was watching that game, and something popped in my mind watching them, knowing what I know about Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
The Big Ten isn't going to win the national championship again this year unless Ohio State just becomes something else on offense. Um, Michigan is a good team. They are a good team.
Mm-hmm.
They are not a team that could beat a Georgia or an Alabama. They are not. Not with their limitations passing the ball. Now, I don't know what the deal was, but if they cannot pass protect against Penn State, they're not going to be able to pass protect against Georgia or Alabama either.
Could they beat a Florida State or a Texas if they were in the playoff and it was Georgia number 1, Florida State or Texas number 4, Florida
Mhm.
State number 3, and Michigan number 2 if they beat Ohio State? Do you think Michigan could win a playoff game and beat a Texas or a Florida State or a Oregon?
I think they could beat Texas or Florida State. They would not beat Oregon because Oregon is a complete team. Michigan is not.
Mhm.
I would say that, the man as the more things change, the more things stay the same. And Alabama and Texas are the two best teams in the country again.
So
That's crazy.
tell me why you think that Michigan would have no shot to beat Georgia.
Because they can't throw the ball. They can't pass protect. It was clear against Penn State that they couldn't block Penn State's speed rush.
Mhm.
Yeah, JJ McCarthy went 7 of 8, but yeah, 8 passes and they were I think it was like 60 yards. So what is that math wise? Like, not very much. Like
Mhm.
7 yards a pop or something like that.
Mhm.
Um
Now that's one of Penn State's real strong points is that rush off the edge.
Yeah, well, Georgia can do that too. So can Alabama. They have speedy, powerful, long athletes that are going to come off the edge and pressure McCarthy. Michigan's not going to be able to run the ball on those teams the way they can against a lot of other Big Ten teams because Georgia and Alabama, they have those big 310-pound, powerful defensive tackles from the South that just, most of the Midwestern teams do not have. And, they're going to shut down Michigan's run. Michigan's going to have to be balanced. And, Penn State, Drew Aller sucks, man. He's
Mhm.
terrible. I did not think he was this bad. I always said that Sean Clifford was better than him, and people laughed at me. And I'm like, what does Drew Aller do? He has a strong arm, and that's it. That is it.
Yeah, he's not very good. At least he's not so far. And
No.
I I think that's certainly on one sense, I can look and go, that is weird that we're playing a game in 2023 and we're throwing the ball 8 times. That in one way, I'm like, that is a big red flag. But then there's this other part of me that's cautiously hedging our own team going to play this Wolverine team and going, or could that be an impressive feat of physicality and will by this Michigan team that they played a very good Penn State defense and essentially said, we're going to line up and run the ball every single time, and we're going to break you and we're going to beat you. The coach was out on short notice, so they would have had less time to prepare for Jim Harbaugh not being on the sideline. And maybe they just said, we are going to run straight at them and we're going to wear them down and beat them because we know our defense is going to stop their offense for the most part. So, if that's the case, then it was kind of impressive. I'm not saying I'm convinced they're elite and can win a national championship. I'm just saying there's different ways to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I'm just not sold on what they do offensively, but
Mhm.
Penn State, I said this before we played them. Their defense is not very big. Like I broke down like their defensive line, I don't think they play anybody that's over 285 pounds.
Mm.
Their secondary isn't long or big. Their linebackers are big and fast. That's the best part of their defense, but that's only 1 out of the 3. You need to
Yeah.
have all 3. Like, Georgia and Alabama have all 3. Like,
Yeah.
Michigan won't be ready for something like that. Ohio State has 2 of the 3, but their linebackers just aren't there, man. They are not there. So Michigan's just not gonna get the looks in the Big Ten
Well,
to
we
prepare
we
for
could we
things
could
like
have
that.
some replacements in there. Tommy Eichenberg was out. Um,
He's not
and
missed, not against the elite teams.
well, he probably won't, but yeah, I'm just saying you never know. He's been banged up. Kind of digressing back to Michigan State, just real quick snippet. Did you get to have any thoughts on how Simon played when he got his opportunity?
I thought he played well. Cody Simon's really freaking good, man. He is like a linebacker that I could be like, okay, that dude, I could see him playing at Georgia or Alabama.
Mhm.
I don't see that with Tommy and Steele. Neither one of them. I don't, they're good Big Ten linebackers, but they're not Ohio State linebackers. They're not. They should be playing for. I'm not about to do them dirty like that and say Michigan State, but I could see them playing at like
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, yeah, Wisconsin or Maryland, starting at those teams. They're
Yeah.
about that quality of person, they're solid Big Ten linebackers, but they are not Ohio State linebackers. There
Or
is a
frankly, or frankly,
massive
Penn
difference.
or frankly, Penn State. I mean, Penn State gets a lot of really good talent, but they don't have the depth all over the field the way that Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, and a few other teams have. They just have really good talent.
They would not start on Penn State. Penn State has better linebackers than Ohio State. Curtis Jacobs and Abdul Carter are both better than Ohio State's
I
linebackers.
agree. I just meant in general. You could
Mm,
see those kind of guys on a given year playing for a Penn State as
yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, for sure, I guess.
So, a little recruiting news, Jay.
Okay, yeah. Tell me what you got, man. Tell me what
Well,
because I'm not an insider anymore on the message board. So tell me what you're hearing.
there's a lot of smoke around this Jeremiah Smith to FSU. And
Well, what
so,
smoke? What smoke? Like, what are they saying?
he's visiting down there. He's making a lot of positive comments about Florida State on social media. He's posting like a lot of pictures at Florida State. Like he's going there a lot. Like he's going to Florida State like often. And so, it has some Ohio State fans worried that there could be a decommitment, that Florida State could capitalize on this and put a huge NIL deal together for him and try to entice him to come and stay in his home state and stay at Florida State. I will add, he's not really staying at home if he goes to Florida State. I mean, I lived in Florida, and so the state is the strangest state in the
Long.
country. And so being from South Florida and going to Tallahassee is like going to a different world. You're staying in state, but it's not the same at all.
Yeah, well, tell me. I mean, like, Jeremiah Smith lives down in Fort Lauderdale. So tell me
Yeah.
about Tallahassee. What do you know about it?
Just to
Yeah.
be like, not being disrespectful. This isn't like, being disrespectful to the people of Tallahassee or anything like that. I'm just telling
Mhm.
you, as an outsider, this is my blunt, analysis of Tallahassee. Is it's an okay city. It's kind of a swamp hick type of feel in a lot of the areas. It's North Florida, which is like the true South. Fort Lauderdale is not like the South at all. Totally different. Totally
Yeah,
different culture in Fort Lauderdale than in Tallahassee. Tallahassee's a lot of good old boys and hog hunting and fishing and deer hunting and alligator hunting, all that kind of stuff. And so,
I do want to
um,
kill an alligator as a hobby. I really do.
yeah, well, I lived in Louisiana and they actually do it. It's a
I
real
would love
thing.
to do it. I would love to go hunt
Yeah,
like
it's a
alligator
real thing.
and
So I've
fucking
I've
kill the
lived in the two
crocodiles.
swamp states, so I got experience with both of them.
Yeah.
But now I'm back in the Great Buckeye State, so you know, I like it. I like it better. But
Yeah,
anyhow,
man. Yeah. And all right. So basically, it's like two different worlds between South Florida and the Panhandle, is what you're saying.
completely, totally different. So he would be more at home coming to a city like Columbus than he would be going to a place like Tallahassee. Now
And
that's
it's
my
not a.
that's
It's got to be a long drive from Miami to fucking Tallahassee, right? What are we looking at
oh,
drive
you're
wise?
looking at probably 7 hours. I mean, yeah, it's not close. So, I mean, Ohio State just needs to make sure there's enough NIL that he can take a plane flight back to South Florida whenever he wants to.
He has developed this year in the little bit I saw of him because I remember, everybody was hyping him up to be like this next great thing. And, Shaman Madonna goes on the road to play Bishop Gorman last year and like their postseason Geico football state championship thing they have on ESPN. And I don't know if he even had a catch against freaking Bishop Gorman. And they had some starters out in their secondary, man. Like he got shut
Yeah.
down. He absolutely got shut down. So, I mean, like he does look better this year, though. He's developed some, but he looked a little soft in that game. But um, if there's one position I don't worry about recruiting, it's wide receiver. Brian Hartline is going to get receivers. Now, they might not be burners because we don't really have burners on this year's team, but they're all very
No.
good players.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I feel good. I do wish we would, that's another subject for another time. I do wish we would get some of those burners again, or at least one of those guys that we
yeah.
could put out on the field. But, Jeremiah Smith, I think he's coming to Ohio State. I do. I think that they're going to work it out to, make him happy, make him feel good about coming. If you're a great wide receiver, honestly, taking the scarlet and gray glasses off, it's a great opportunity to go to Ohio State. You're going to be following a lot of first round draft picks over the last, 5, 6 years. And so, and a lot of success in that room. And so why would you go play in the ACC for 3 years? Come play in the new Big Ten with Ohio State, with Penn State, with Michigan, with UCLA, with Wisconsin, with Oregon, with Washington, with USC. Come be a part of that. You're going to stay in the ACC. Yeah, I think he's going to be a Buckeye.
I'm not a recruiting insider, Michael, but
Mm,
I have been able to read tea leaves better than a lot of people. And I'm going to
mhm.
give people out there a little cheat code. The cheat code is, yeah, you're going to have to, probably pay for like insider information, but look at the insiders of Florida State. Like, for instance, like this with Jeremiah Smith. Go look at what they're saying.
Mhm.
Go look at what Ohio State's saying. And then the answer is probably somewhere in the middle. That's where
Yeah.
your answer is. And then don't read about what these players are saying. Find videos and listen to them speak because listening and hearing somebody's thoughts are much better than reading because
Yeah.
now you're going to be able to pick up on emotion for some like body language and mannerisms that you're not going to obviously see.
Yeah.
You can't see if you're reading it.
Yeah, I mean, especially with these young guys today. I mean, it's
They're not going to mask their emotions at will.
yeah, you gotta take a look at how they're saying what they're saying, not just what they're saying. So I think he's going to be a Buckeye, but one area of concern on the recruiting trail has been offensive line.
Yeah, I was just
And
about to
what do you
mention
think
that.
about big Mister Seaton, big left tackle extraordinaire? Do you give the Buckeyes any chance at landing that one? I'm going to go ahead and give you my take. I give them about a 5% chance. I give them very little chance. So you tell us your thoughts on it.
Well, I will tell you this. I was going to probably agree with you up until about a couple hours ago because I did see that Jordan Seaton had something happen to him at IMG. He had some kind of mandatory practice that he couldn't miss on a Saturday morning and couldn't make the trip up to Ohio to attend a night game. So that is a little suspicious. I don't know what's going on there. Very, very odd. But I just got again, this isn't confirmed. I mean, but I did hear that he actually is going to attend the Minnesota game next Saturday. Now, let's wait until he actually steps foot on campus. But if he steps foot on campus and Ohio State is getting a visit, this they are getting a visit this late in the ball game when early signing day is actually, what, mid-December?
Mhm.
I could see Ohio State having like a 30 to 40% chance of landing him because Ohio State has missed on so many offensive linemen.
Mhm.
And let's be real here. Ohio State is playing the NIL game. Are they playing it as well as some other teams? No, they are not. But they absolutely are. And they should have a lot of money left over for all the misses they've had along the offensive line and be like, dude, take fucking all of it. Take our
Jay,
money.
and
Take our fucking money.
they've got money left over on the defensive line too because they kept missing on edge players that they were running.
Right?
They did get one of them, but they thought they were going to get three of those guys. So they
Right.
should, yeah.
Well, there is a guy that visited this past weekend. He has one more visit to go, unfortunately, to Tennessee. But Amaris Williams from here in North Carolina, from over in Clinton, North Carolina, on the East Coast, close to Wilmington,
Mm,
he visited this past weekend. And man, you see, again, I haven't listened to him talk, and I've read, so it kind of goes against what I said, but everything I read about what he says seems positive. But again, I am going to have to see some video evidence that confirm that he's going to be a Buckeye. But he is being recruited as an edge. He doesn't fit the body type, but you watch his film, and it's like, wow. This kid, again, the competition sucks he's playing against. Let's be real. It's really
mm.
bad. But he could be playing on air and be like, "Okay, this big kid is just big and fast," and it's like, "Okay, well, where do you sign him up?" You're gonna have to find a place to play him. He's
Yeah.
listed at like 6'3", 265. He doesn't have quite the height or the length you would want for an edge rusher, but he's got the speed to play it, that's for sure.
Mm. Well, hopefully they get him. It'd be good to get another one of those defensive end edge guys in this class because
Yeah.
our big man from Georgia, I think he's going to be a great player. I don't see him as that speed threat off the edge
My boy
necessarily.
Edric Houston.
Yeah, yeah, boy. I mean, can we not get him to reconsider South Carolina?
Oh, we talking about Dylan Stewart.
The Dylan Stewart kid, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
Edric Houston, yes, we're getting, but can we not get Dylan Stewart to reconsider South Carolina? Bring him into this class?
No, I don't think so. They said
Doesn't
I
seem like
read
it.
that he's visited South Carolina for like every home game. He's not going anywhere.
How
He
could you pick South Carolina?
I don't know, man. But I'll tell you what, and here's another part that's like concerning to me. You
I
see
got into
Ohio
it with
State.
South Carolina fans today.
I'm going to ask you about that in a moment, but I will
Yeah.
say this. It is concerning to me that Ohio State has always locked in these battles with like Southeastern teams, but
Mhm.
you never hear about us getting into these battles with any Big Ten team.
No,
The Big Ten just sucks at recruiting, man. It really does.
no. I mean,
I don't know what else to say.
occasionally we're going after a guy that Michigan wants or something, but that's about the extent of it.
Yeah, and we win every time. If it's
Yeah,
us in Michigan, we win pretty much every
yeah, for
time.
the
If it's
most
us in
part, yeah,
Penn State, we win every time.
yeah.
Against if it's us in Notre Dame, we win 85% of the time.
Yeah.
They're the only ones in the Midwest to actually take some players from us and that
Yeah.
we actually want. But dude, what happened with South Carolina? What are you talking about?
Oh, just on the message board. They were talking about Seton, and I guess South Carolina thinks they're going to make a play for Seton, and I
What?
post
How?
it. Well, I don't know, and I post. I mean, everybody says it's Ohio State, Texas, or who is the third school? Anyhow, there's a third school in there. So Ohio State,
Well,
Texas.
Tennessee is a team.
Okay, well, it could be them. There's three that they're saying that most people
Well,
think that.
it makes sense because South Carolina has recruited the DMV well, Dylan Stewart being one of them.
Yeah, and so yeah, so they're thinking that they got a chance to get him. And so I put on there, I said, who on earth would waste their talent in South Carolina? This is
Have
one
you
of
ever been to Columbia, South
those.
Carolina?
Yes, I have.
Okay, it's shitty, man. I don't
Yeah,
really
it
know what
stinks.
people say.
It's
It's
awful.
old.
It's awful.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I'm
Yeah,
actually
and
going there
and
to
so they
yeah.
start saying all they can talk about is the two Outback Bowl wins. They're really thumping their chest over the late Cooper years Outback Bowl wins. And so I responded to all of them with a copy paste that said, I understand why Outback Bowls are so important to you because that's all your program has is a few Outback Bowls. But since losing those games, I'll take the two national championships, the multiple conference championships, the multiple first round draft picks, the multiple BCS and New Year's Six bowl games, and an additional playoff game tacked on there. I understand, and basically letting them know to even compare the two programs is ridiculous.
Yeah, for sure, but it's so weird. Again, it's, weird and concerning for the Big Ten that we're locked in these battles against teams in the Southeast all the time. And this isn't just the SEC, but, Florida State, Clemson. We don't see this from the Big Ten. Nobody in the Big Ten
Jay,
recruits like this.
as we take it on out, that would be a good topic to just kind of discuss here the last few minutes of this podcast is do you think that there's hope for that to change? It's becoming clear to me that there wasn't a lot of hope for significant change is when as long as there was no change within the conference. But now that we are bringing some new blood along, we're bringing two California teams, a Washington team, and an Oregon team, and who knows, maybe another couple of teams over the next few years. But we're injecting a lot of new uh, states, regions of the country, some of them talent rich, some of them already with well-developed programs. Do you think that this is going to help the Big Ten level up and start to at least get 4 and 5 quality teams in the top 25 year in and year out?
Top 25 in recruiting or just top 25 in general?
Everything. In recruiting, I would say 6 or 7 in the top 25, and 5 or so in the top 25 during the season, almost all the time. Like rarely should there be less than 5 Big Ten teams in the top 25 with the new conference alignment. And so the question is, will that help some of the Big Ten teams to level the playing field somewhat through better recruiting? Or do you think it'll, that just those teams that come in will be better and it won't help the rest of the Big Ten at all?
Well, UCLA and Washington aren't recruiting powerhouses. They just are teams that, well, Washington is a team that has a really, really, really good head coach,
Mhm.
and is developed well, but they're not a recruiting powerhouse. I mean, the state of Washington did produce JT Tuimal or J Tuimalau
And in
and
Mecca,
Emeka, and G Scott, and we took all of them. That's so funny. But I'm looking at them right now. They're 40th in recruiting. They're not a team that has overly talented players, but they just have a good scheme and they've bought into it. USC and Oregon are, but I don't. If you're asking me, are we going to have more teams in the top 25? Yeah, we are, just by association of those teams. But what I'm telling you is it shouldn't take us going to get teams from out of the conference to become better. It is on the teams within the conference to get better. Like again, I addressed this last week. Like teams like Maryland, they are terrible, and they shouldn't be this bad because they actually are located within a solid recruiting foundation. You have Rutgers in the New Jersey area that has pretty good football talent, and they're disgustingly bad. They looked horrible yesterday against a solid Iowa team. Nothing to write home about. Like the Big Ten, just Luke Fickle he's been terrible this year. I
Yeah,
didn't,
not good.
yeah. I don't think Luke Fickle. I've said it. I don't think Luke Fickle's a very good head coach, but for him to perform like this, like Wisconsin's going to be like, what the hell did we just sign up for? Because
Yeah.
Paul Christ was better than this.
Next year better be 9-3, or 10-3, or somewhere in that
Yeah,
range.
it
Yeah.
should. I mean, if
Yeah.
I'm a Wisconsin fan, I'm like seriously concerned here
Mhm.
because Wisconsin had their best recruiting class that I've probably ever seen under Paul Chryst with 2021. All
Mm.
those kids are juniors. Luke
Yeah.
Fickle inherited all of them, and he's done terrible with them this year.
Yeah.
Like, that is really bad. I mean, like, the Big Ten needs to get better at hiring coaches. They need to get better at recruiting, and I'm not talking about the teams that are coming in next year. I'm talking about the teams that are currently here. The teams that are currently here need to do a lot better because not only does it hurt the conference, it does hurt Ohio State because Ohio State, like I said before, if we're not getting the looks and we're playing against these shitty offenses, when we have to line up in the Peach Bowl against like Alabama or Georgia in their backyard and they're
Mhm.
playing spread and they have the ability to run power. We don't run into that at all with any team in the Big Ten. So we can't prepare for it. And it really does hurt us. It does.
You know what I think needs to happen for the Big Ten to really take a step forward? Yes, they need to recruit better. Yes, they need to hire better coaches, all of those things. But I think you need a multiple conference, multiple teams from the Big Ten to win the national championship in a relatively short period of time, whether that's 5 years, 6 years, whatever. They need a Ohio State to win one, followed by a USC or an Oregon, or maybe I don't. I'll just stick with USC or Oregon.
Mhm.
I think that'd be very beneficial for recruits to know there's another conference that has multiple teams, multiple programs that are capable of winning national championships.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like, really the last couple of years, it's only been Ohio State that's had the capabilities of winning a national championship. I
I
understand
mean,
Michigan's won the
s-
Big Ten,
since the
but
BCS era, Jay, there's been one national champion in the Big Ten. That's Ohio State in 2002 and 2014. There's been nobody else. No other Big Ten team has played in a championship game.
yeah, every other team that's gone to the playoffs outside of Ohio State have been blown out.
Yeah, Big
Michigan
Ten has
State
three
went.
playoff wins. All three of them belong to Ohio State.
That's right. Yeah, because Michigan State went in 2015 and got destroyed by
Mhm.
Alabama. I think they lost like 38-3, and then
Yeah.
Michigan went 2 years ago and lost to Georgia, similar, so very similar score.
Yeah, 33 to
Um,
14 or something, or 33 to 11 or something like that.
yeah, yeah, it was like 11 because Michigan, like, scored and went for 2, and yeah, I do remember that. It was just that is, it's just not good, man. That's just not
Mm.
good. Ohio State's been the only team that's been able to field a team and competitive. It's like, Ohio State, we're basically known to be like, yeah, we're good enough to play with anyone, but we don't beat Georgia or Alabama. We can give them a game, but we don't win.
Not very much, no.
No, no, we don't. So
No.
I don't have anything else to add to this week, Michael. I know we play Minnesota next week, but I will say the only thing I can really say about that game is if we don't win by 21 points, there's massive problems because Minnesota's terrible.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm gonna go ahead and throw a score out because I did not do so for the Michigan State game, but I'm
Oh
gonna
man,
go.
I couldn't care less about this game. I just want to see
Yeah,
us
I'm
blown
I'm I'm
out.
I'm gonna throw a score out 34-10. That's what I think.
34-10. Ooh.
Yeah, yeah. I think that they're gonna take a step forward. They're gonna thump Minnesota. The offense is gonna look a little better. Defense is gonna stay strong, and let's be honest, they don't have a big challenge in Minnesota. Yeah, I'm gonna go 34-10.
The spread is like 27.5. So you think Ohio State's not going to cover the spread against Minnesota at home,
So
huh?
you think I'm giving them less?
Yeah, I think you're taking a step back.
Well, that's what I think, because
Okay.
I don't, Minnesota is going to slow it down. They're going to try everything they can not to get beat badly. And I just don't think that the offense this year has been explosive enough and efficient enough to put up, 41, 44, 48 points.
No, I cannot disagree, but I am gonna disagree based on my score if I throw one out. Dude, I haven't watched Minnesota really at all outside of the North Carolina game they played. Um, they suck. They're slow. PJ Fleck needs fired. Another bad head coach. I don't know why people thought he was a good head coach. He's not. He's terrible. Minnesota should bring back Len Mason. Um,
Yeah. Never should
if
have
I were to
fired him.
yeah, I'll probably say like 41. I will give Ohio State the 40 this game. I'll go 41 to 7 or something like that. You have to understand, Minnesota got blown out yesterday against fucking Purdue. Purdue.
What
Purdue
was the
blew them
score?
out. It was like 48 to 20, something, 30.
Oh
It was like
gosh.
49 to 30. Very high scoring, but Purdue blew them out. That is
Oh wow.
terrible. And Purdue
Well,
sucks so fucking
I
bad.
didn't watch them this weekend. I watched them play Michigan, and I watched them play maybe like, I don't know, maybe Wisconsin or Iowa, or one of those teams. I've seen them a couple of times this year, but
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, maybe it's all falling apart. So I hope so,
I don't know, man. They need to
if
fire
that's the
Fleck.
case, I hope they do beat them worse than 34-10. I just
Yeah, but
honestly,
you're stuck on your score, man. You're
I'm stuck
stuck
on my
on your
score,
score.
but I'm just not that interested in Minnesota because
No, I'm not at all. I
it
couldn't
doesn't,
care
like,
less,
if
like
you
I
can't
said.
beat Minnesota, none of it matters anyway. Like, this team is that bad. Like, they're not one of these sneaky teams that
They're
can get
they're
you.
slightly better than Michigan State, but it's not by much. Michigan State's really bad, but Minnesota is a is just slightly better than Michigan State, slightly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, Jay, I think that's going to take us out of here.
Yeah, man. Fire Holtman. Fire that motherfucker. He sucks. And don't spend your money on that team. I advise everyone in listening, don't go to Ohio State basketball games. It's not worth it. Not until they have a new head coach and something that we should be proudly spending our money on and something we can get behind because the product on the floor is not worth getting behind and it's just going to make you feel miserable watching them.
There it is. That is the first word on Ohio State basketball. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope this occupied some time in your day and gave you something to think about. And we will be back with with our next episode next week.
Be an
Thank you.
exciting episode.
Exciting episode. Thank you,
Yeah.
and talk with you then.